What's up, everyone? Good afternoon. Hi. I'm going to just wait till a few people come. Meanwhile, in celebration of International Women's Day, let's do something pretty awesome in the background here. How's everybody doing today? Cool. Enjoy the vibes for like a minute or two as everybody flocks in. Good afternoon. And once we got a few people in, we'll kind of go through the ground rules and stuff and just kind of talk about the format of what we're doing. So cool. Good afternoon, everyone. It's about 3:30 Eastern time right now. Hope everybody's good. Today's International Women's Day, and the topic we're discussing is going to be women's empowerment. So just hang tight. I'm about to start in about maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds or so. How's everybody doing? Can you guys hear the music? Awesome. Cool. Anyways, We'll get started. I'll put that music down a little bit. Or I'll just put the volume down so it's just in the background. So, hi and welcome. This is the third episode of the Cimifly Live, the entrepreneur's journey, and I am your host, Cecil Williams. Today's episode is brought to you by Royal Dynamite. And Royal Dynamite is a t-shirt brand that I co-founded, and it's self-expression through fashion to facilitate social change. So Royal Dynamite believes that culture can drive change in communities around the world through fashion, collaboration, and creativity. Royal Dynamite uses collective love of fashion to inform, educate, and inspire communities around the world. Like I mentioned, my name is Cecil Williams. What's up, Sylvia? How you doing? And today's topic is going to be women's empowerment. And funny thing is, I didn't know today was International Women's Day. Well, now I know, considering it's been all day, but I found out last night. And I had scheduled this topic probably maybe about a month ago, and happened to be that when I checked last night, I was like, oh, today is International Women's Day. And yes, I had scheduled the topic because this is Women's History Month. So kind of came about perfectly. What's up? And the stars aligned perfectly. And so today's International Women's Day. So shout out to all the powerful and strong women out there doing their thing. And yeah, so today kind of wanted to just spend some time being an advocate for women's empowerment, talking about certain things that whether happening in the world, happening and all that type of stuff, and just talk about this stuff because I think it's important for most of us men around the world or just citizens of the world. For me, I grew up in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I grew up around a lot of women. So my mom's side of the family, my grandmother was a strong woman. She had her own business, and my mom followed suit. But her sisters and her siblings, my grand aunts and stuff, there were some powerful women. I consider them superheroes. So they were go getters. I mean, they were artists. They traveled around the world. One of my grandmothers wrote one of the first cookbooks in West Africa, O'Reilly Wright. So seeing that, or as it transpired to my transferred down to my mother and my sisters, and being around all these women, and my father was also played a great part in letting me understand that we were all equal growing up. So there wasn't no you get treated as a girl, you get treated as a boy, or that type of stuff. I mean, yes, there are things that are popular to women and or growing up to boys and girls and things of that nature, but we weren't treated where we were taught to say think differently. I mean, society as a whole in where I grew up probably does that, but I think my parents did their best not necessarily to shield us from those things, but to teach us when we experience those things that wasn't right, or they led by example to let us know what was right from wrong. So as we grew older and went into the world, we knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into. And as I grew older, lived in America, um, my wife now, we've been together for some time. I've seen what strength is in a woman. I mean, anything she sets her mind to do, she not only wants to do it, but she wants to smash it. So seeing that every day, my mother, she's a businesswoman. She's an entrepreneur. She's a fighter. I mean, there's always these clashes between her and my father about her entrepreneurial dreams, and but she's constantly pushing. I mean, he encourages her, but at the same time, I mean, whether it creates friction or whatever, doesn't matter. I mean, but at the same time, she never stops. She just keeps pushing. And I always say I have a little bit of both of them in mind in myself, and more so my mom. I guess I took the entrepreneurial side from her, but she just never stops. She's a go-getter. I mean, at her age till today, she's a dreamer, and bless her for that. And she just stops at nothing. I mean, people always say, oh, your mother needs to slow down. And I'm like, well, that's what keeps them alive. The fact that she's constantly always pushing to get to do what she wants. And my father being there to give her the freedom to express herself and is an amazing thing. And I grew up seeing that. So I think that's a very important thing when it comes to being an advocate, but empowering women as well. I think one of the most important things is the sacrifices we have to make, I think, as men. And most men, what's up, Adra? How you doing? Most of us men, especially in the society I grew up, have to understand the sacrifices we have to make for women. And sometimes these sacrifices will make us feel inferior. Yes. Sometimes these sacrifices will make us feel insecure. Yes. But this is what it's kind of almost getting a taste of how we make everybody else feel in society. If it's kind of getting a taste of your own medicine. So, and I don't say that to say I'm going anti-man or whatever the case is, or becoming a feminist and all that type of stuff. But essentially, what it is it's understanding. They always say sometimes if you understand how people feel, then you know how to treat them. So it becomes a mindset shift for us as men. If we know how that inferiority or insecurity that we feel, then you get to know how women get to feel every day of their lives. And maybe we get that, like I said, that mindset shift comes around where we get to understand how we should treat women in society. I mean, we have to support our women. It doesn't make you less of a man. Trust me, it really doesn't. And I mean, today you're seeing all these things on social media or wherever you're looking at. I mean, equality. We need to support the women in our lives. We need to make sure they feel equal to us, and we need to continue to show support. One of the things that happened, I think last week, it was the buzz of the internet, was President Biden nominating, her name is Ketanji Brown Jackson, to be the first, I guess, Supreme Court Black to serve with the Supreme Court justice, and she's going to be the first Black female, and that rocks, because at the end of the day, I think as we grew older, we saw, yes, President Obama become the first president, but his wife become the first Black, I guess, first lady, and then we had the first female vice president. As women grow up in society and get to see these things, it makes them feel empowered. It makes them feel comfortable in society. Or you go to Africa and you have in Liberia, they had the first female president in Madam Johnson Sirleaf, and you see these things. And I always have these sidebar conversations with some of my friends where I say, I think, especially in Africa, more women need to be giving a seat at the table, at the highest offices, not just let's just fill these quotas to make women ministers, or fill these quotas to make women directors, or whatever, that type of stuff. Like, we need to make more women vice presidents, presidents, and leaders in our society. Because I mean, from someone who grew up in a household with women, seeing how women are nurturing, seeing my mother, I do think those take tough leadership to be able to navigate that whole, I mean, like I keep saying, my mother, navigate the home, navigate the business front, navigate marriage and all these things. I mean, a lot of us men are sheltered from these things by women, so we don't have to understand or go through these things. And when you think of the backbone of society, it then becomes about women. And if we just, I mean, put aside our ego, because I think for most of it as men, it becomes an ego thing. And if we just support women in those spaces, then I think we will start to see a shift. And these things have to be taught from a very young age with boys. I have a son, and I have to teach him from a very young age how to treat people, but how to treat people equally. And I think and I'm using the word people because if you start saying, no, that's a girl, no, that's and it starts at a very young age, and they take this information in, and then that separation, or that, okay, I'm better than this, and that's how it starts. And as we grow older, and especially if we live in a society where that happens a lot, it permeates through the entire society, and men get to start feeling superior to women and all these things. And it breeds a society of contempt. And in that regard, then you have people see people differently, and I don't think that's right. So I think we have to support our women, and like I said earlier, it doesn't make us any less. I mean, yes, like I was just saying, women are seen differently many a times, and yes, I'm not going to say I don't, because it'd be hypocritical of me to come and say, oh yes, because yes, we grow up in ways where we've been taught to see these things differently. I mean, an example I can give that I was following recently in sports was the U.S. women's national team sued the federation for, I think, $66 million because they wanted equal pay. When you look at women's, I mean, soccer in the United States, the women by far have I mean, I think they have a better team. They by far have entertained the world, not just the United States. They by far have pushed soccer to where it is today. And they are paid pennies on the dollar compared to what the United States men's team is paid, and they haven't accomplished anything. I mean, I'm not saying they're not good. I mean, they're applying their trade around the world and doing what they need to do, and they're getting there. But the women have, in my opinion, United States soccer, period, not men or women, wouldn't be where it is today if not for the women. And they're not being compensated fairly. And as a result, they wanted to be compensated and file a lawsuit. And they settled recently for $24 million. I mean, we're coming from 66 to $24 million. They saw it as a victory. I mean, I think it's a start. But to me, I thought it was just unfair. And Hope Solo, who is always a critic of that and is very outspoken about this stuff, most people would say she's coming from a negative perspective, but I'm with her. I think it's a win, but it again goes to that win of, okay, here are the men, here are the women, and you asked for this. Because if the men had asked for 66, first of all, they would have probably asked for more. We would have probably asked for more. We would have probably gotten exactly what we asked for. So those things, I think, are the things in society that we have to be mindful of. And if you kind of look at this, is the justice system even discriminating against women? So these parts of society have to rectify and fix themselves. And until these branches fix themselves, then we have a lot of inequality. And there's a part I missed that I wanted to go through that I normally would say, and I'm going to go back real quick and have a little say about that. So every time I start these shows, I like to what's up, Jessica? I like to give quotes by every start of this. So I'm going to have 3 quotes from, I kind of took it to a generational thing, didn't want to go too back. So the first one is from Issa Rae. She says, once I learned to like me more than others did, then I didn't have to worry about being the funniest or the most popular or the prettiest. I was the best me, and I only tried to ever be that. I mean, that's powerful and important. I think we're taught as men to always be ourselves. So I think for her understanding that, and for every woman to understand that, walk into a room being being yourself, and walk into a room being yourself, and that was important for her. So we don't see her as a comedian. We don't see her as the pretty face. We see her as Issa Rae, representing, building something and uplifting others, uplifting her community. The next one is by Malala Yousafzai. And she said, I raise my voice not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. And that half is not even when half of women are held back. That half is, you cannot push the agenda for men when women are held back. That half is all of women, not just saying, oh, half of, 1 second, I don't know. Okay, I don't know if you guys can still hear me, but essentially, if we hold back women and only moving men in the right direction, part of the reason I don't want to get political, but it's why we have wars, because it becomes a male chauvinistic egomaniac thing of this person saying this is mine, that person says no, this is mine, and we're dealing with issues like that in the world today, in Ukraine and Russia and the West getting involved in all that type of stuff. But she's saying we cannot keep doing that. We have to move everyone forward in the right direction. And the last quote is from someone I really like there, Brianna. Said, there's something special about a woman who dominates in a man's world. It takes a certain grace, strength, intelligence, fearlessness, and the nerve to never take no for an answer. Now, that's powerful and strong. And if everybody who follows her knows her, she's somebody who's I mean, ascended in her career. She takes no for an answer. She's dealt with a lot, but at the same time, where she is today, most people never expected her to be there. Some people are surprised, but she worked hard to get where she is today. And it's not just by being the pretty woman in the room making the music videos. I mean, she doesn't even want to make music anymore. She is very powerful in the business world. She's very powerful in what she does. She has an audience, a massive audience, and we have to respect these things and spaces like that. More of that needs to be created for women around the world. She doesn't have to ask anybody for permission to do anything. And I always say, I'm constantly reminded of my mom when it comes to that, not having to ask for permission, essentially to do what she wants to do, and she will just do it. And she lives with the consequences, right or wrong. And that's what men have been taught to do. When you think of venture capitalists, and since this is an entrepreneurial show and business, men take millions and millions of dollars, especially white men, and they can blow it now, because if you think of the unicorns, the companies that make it, the percentage is that small, and they can blow all of it, and there's no consequences in the grand scheme of what we see. At the end of the day, they can get away with it and saying, well, hey, it is what it is. This is the ecosystem of the world we live in. Whilst women don't even get to enter that room to make a case for themselves to even get a piece of that pie. So I think it's important that we check some of these things. And just today, I was reading something about, well, as I did some research for this, it said it's improved, rightfully so, but for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 82 cents. I still don't get and understand why a woman has to make less than a man. Yes, people might want to come up with arguments for that, but I don't see an argument around it. I mean, if I had a daughter and a son, let's say twins, in this case, one's a boy, one's a girl. Oh, am I on mute? No. Am I still on mute? What's up, fam? Hopefully not, because my alarm was going off and that kind of mess things up, but hopefully I'm not on mute anymore. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Put a 1 in there or something. Let's see. Oh, yes. I think I'm on. Okay, good. You guys can hear me. Cool. And I think I was saying something about women making 82 cents for every dollar a man makes, and I'm not understanding. And my example was, if I had twins and they grew up and they share this special bond and everything, and they go into the workplace, they decide to do the same things, both of them apply for a job. I'm just going to use whole numbers. And my son comes home and say, Dad, I got the job and I'm making $100,000. And my daughter says, hey, I got home and I got the same job across the street and I'm making $82,000 and we're doing the same thing. How would she feel? How would I feel? How would he feel? Like, that kind of sums it up and explains it all. So I don't think that's right. And it also says, I read this on my WhatsApp feed today, where it says 60% of women experience bias at work. And that could be deliberate or unconscious. And I don't think it matters whether it's deliberate or unconscious. Yes, sometimes it does, but that has to change. And if women experience this bias in the workplace, then they don't feel comfortable to report it to anyone. They report it to the male counterpart that is their boss. So they keep these things inside. They lose their jobs. They fall out of the workforce, and that sets them back. And statistics show that as a result of the pandemic and women having to drop out of the workforce because of things like childcare and all these kinds of things, it set them 30 years back. These things don't even make sense. I mean, we have to find a way to coexist and accommodate these things as if they were normal, as if this is everyday things. I understand there's complexities or things we as human beings choose to make into complex situations, but we have to find a way to if we don't speak up as men and more of us advocate and just say, oh, well, they'll figure it out. No, they won't, because we live in an ecosystem where we all have to coexist. And if we don't help women figure these things out, we just don't figure it out. So I think we have to understand and figure these things out. And as I was looking and reading, specifically in entrepreneurship, I read somewhere where, I don't know what these countries are because it didn't give me the statistics, but it says there's only 7 countries in the world where women and men own businesses at an equal rate. 7. That's mind blowing. I mean, however many 200 plus countries in the world, only 7 function like that. And it's saying in most of these countries, women own significantly fewer businesses, or if you think women own significantly fewer businesses, but at the same time, we have to make that shift, because I think I will give an example again, because I think it's important to give examples. My mother, I remember during the heat of the pandemic, business was tough. I mean, businesses were shutting down and all these kinds of things. And I remember we used to have these, not arguments, but challenges of, okay, you have to lay off your staff or you have to kind of stop paying them because you're not making the revenue. And she refused. So the little money she made, she's like, if I have to pay my staff and go without, that is what I'll do, because it is my responsibility to them and their families to make this happen. And I think men sometimes don't get to understand that immediately. I mean, but for a woman, it's innate in her to understand that. And not one staff was laid off. She continued to keep these people on board. Sometimes from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense. You could lose their entire business and all these people by making such decisions. But the humanity in her, understood that. And as a result, she figured it out. And most people would say, why are you doing that? But she figured it out. And as a result, they all survived. The business survived, the staff survived, and they continued to do well. And she's hiring more people and she's wanting to grow. So these are examples that people have to understand, taking to heart. And I think if we figure these things out as men, to be more compassionate to these thoughts and to how women fit into our society, we will make it happen. I think we will figure it out, because at the end of the day, we have to support, we have to advocate, we have to give more women access to finance. We have to give more women access to entering the room, to have a voice and hear them out, and not just treat them. So this is why you guys probably stop hearing me, because my alarm keeps going off. And my alarm is going off because it's a reminder for me to go pick up my son from daycare. Just saying. But yeah, so I think to round it all up, we as men have to advocate for women. We have to support women in whatever they want to do. We have to make sacrifices, and we have to understand that these sacrifices are not to make us feel inferior or insecure. We have to figure that out. That's something we have to do with ourselves. But if we go into situations where, whether it's in relationships, in business, and we see things as equal, then we lay a foundation for things to be better. We have to have more women leaders in our society. I mean, I look at in Sierra Leone, in Freetown, the mayor is female, and a lot of the challenges she's even going through as mayor, and you sometimes they cast it as political. Fine, okay, whatever. I don't want to get into that, but you cannot sit aside and say part of it is not because she's female, because at the end of the day, what she's having to go through is just I mean, a male counterpart wouldn't have to go through that. I mean, I grew up in Sierra Leone up until a certain age, and I was telling my mom that before Akibo Bex, who was a mayor of, this was over maybe 30, 40 years ago, was probably the last significant mayor Freetown had that was known and did something for that city. And now, if you kind of fast forward 40 years later, we have a female mayor who's making moves, making waves, doing things that are getting recognized, but not just doing things that are getting recognized. She's moving the needle to transform an entire city, and she's getting pushback primarily from men. That doesn't help the society. It doesn't help the city. It doesn't help society. It doesn't help what other young women trying to come up see that example and say, or men thinking it's okay as young men to say, this is how we can continue to treat women. It's not right. Shouldn't happen that way. So like I said, for us as men, we have to advocate for women. We have to be in their corner. We have to make sacrifices for them to be able to do the things that we have been able to do. We have to support them in their careers. We have to support them in pregnancy. We have to support them in childbirth. We have to support them in all the things they want to do to succeed, because only then when we support them, empathize and sympathize and understand that we are all equal, would we get to where we need to get to. We need to treat them equally. We need to treat women equally. We need to understand that if we do not treat women equally, we're going to continue to have a lot of the same problems that we keep trying to solve. I mean, it's like the idea of trying to fix something and keep doing the same thing. You're not going to have any of what's up, Ken? Any of those results. So I think ultimately, at the end of the day, we just have to find a way to support women, to empower women, to make sure women are in those rooms where decisions are made. Women have access to finances. Women are pushed up in the leadership ladder, and women become leaders at the extreme top of the pole. And I personally believe, and I always say this, maybe a lot of my male counterparts might not agree with me, especially in Africa, if we have more female leaders, watch that continent transform. More female leaders, watch that continent transform. Give it a chance, give it a try. So that's it for me, folks. I've gone over, but maybe this was a passionate topic of mine, or just something that we needed to put out there. And thank you all for joining, for everybody who came on. I really, really appreciate you. So we'll be back on in 2 weeks, and we'll be on every 2 weeks from then. And we're coming up with more topics. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we get some guests on the show, talk to people, and get the perspective and opinions of other people. But thank you guys very much. I really appreciate this. And again, Cecil signing out. You guys have a good day.